What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode of the Fight Maniac podcast. Thank you guys so much for tuning in once again. I really appreciate all of you that are out there tuning in, watching, listening, wherever you guys are from. Cheers. As always, if you want to support your boy, all I ask is that you go ahead and you hit the like button and you hit the subscribe button. That will help me out tremendously. So thank you guys. If you want to support the channel, if you like the content, that's the way to support. And we're going to talk about a lot of different things today. We have a lot of shit to cover. The MMA / world, fighting world has been very busy this past week, as far as news goes. So no fights, however, which is unfortunate, but is great because we still have some content, to push and to upload. Obviously, we have the big Makhachev versus De La Magdalena fight in like 2 weeks, I think. So definitely going to be breaking that down. So stay tuned for when that uploads, probably early next week, Monday or Tuesday. But yeah, obviously, to start off, we have the biggest, I think, scandal that the UFC has gone through in quite some time. There's been a few things here and there, PEDs, people getting arrested, drugs, and, John Jones is involved in a few of those. But, this one, it's major. And obviously, if you guys have been paying attention to a lot of MMA media, MMA outlets, it's been this gambling betting scandal that took place over the weekend at the Apex card with Isaac Dolgarian versus Del Valle. We had a similar incident happen a few years back, and for what we've heard, that's still going, under investigation. So, kind of makes me wonder, how long is this one gonna take? I have a little prediction, though. I think that because of the whole Paramount deal going on, I think Dana and the UFC are gonna want to get to the bottom of this relatively quickly. But anyways, if you guys are not familiar, I'll break it down. I got all my information, by the way, from the great Ariel Hawani. Him and his team did a great job of breaking this down. So, and just a few other outlets here and there, some short-form content. But yeah, essentially, obviously, we had an Apex card. It was an okay card. It was whatever, I was surprised about definitely surprised about the main event. I definitely thought it was going to go a different way. I wasn't sure that Garcia was going to be able to get it done against Onama, but he did. But anyways, lower in the card, we had Isaac Dolgarian versus Del Valle. You can call him YDV, Yadier Del Valle. And obviously there was some, for what we hear, there was some odd movement, some suspicious activity on the betting line right before the fight. And they noticed a bunch of people were putting money in Del Valle to win first round submission. And I guess when it's enough for what I hear, Isaac Dolgarian was a huge favorite. He was a minus 470. And then he dropped all the way to minus 270. And I think that's what he ended at. So for what Dana White said, and also if you there's another source that I have is the Dana White statement that he released. I think he was in TMZ or some other outlet, but for what he said, when they got notified of this, because they have a third-party company that tracks, betting money lines and all of that to make sure there's no fuckery, pretty much. That's their job, and, well, I guess they did it correctly on Saturday. They noticed that the line moved really, really weirdly, so they contacted Dana. Dana, for what he said, he contacted Isaac Dolgarian and his lawyer. And they talked to him, and because it was suspicious activity, they thought it was an injury, which I thought this whole breakdown was a little weird. The whole, your point blank asking your fighter, are you about to fucking, throw this fight here? What the fuck are you doing? But they asked him if he was injured. They asked him if what happened, and if he owed people money, whatever. And for what he said no. He said he was ready to go fight. And then the fight happens, and he gets submitted in the very first round, which is exactly a lot of people, for what I heard, a lot of people also bet the money, just the straight money line on Del Valle. But the big bet that was happening was first round submission. So fight starts. That's exactly how the fight ends. Isaac Dolgarian gets submitted, which is crazy. And if you watch the broadcast, even DC was like, that doesn't look right, because Isaac is a pretty good grappler. He has, he wrestled. I actually know a buddy that wrestled with him in college. He got beat by Isaac Bulgarian, but just the way he lost, you can tell DC was like, man, something's not right. And usually when that's going on, we usually can very quickly go to like, oh, maybe he was injured. But we didn't hear anything about that, As of right now, Isaac and his camp, I don't think have come out and said anything about it, but that's usually what we hear sometimes. Oh, maybe he got, dislocated shoulder, so he can't defend a rear naked choke or something. But again, so far we haven't heard nothing about that. So, but it looked weird. Like, it looked like he just wasn't even trying. And don't take it from me, I'm not a grappling expert. Take it from Daniel Cormier. But yeah, the fight ends, and for what Dana White says, he immediately goes to the back and he's like, oh, fuck this shit. This kid 100% threw this fight. Well, that's not what he said word by word, but he said that he essentially went to the back and called the UFC. Sorry, called the FBI, which is a pretty big deal. To immediately go to the FBI and say, hey, we think something just happened. We think, no, this fighter was involved in this. And this is one of my biggest questions here is, how involved is Isaac Dolgarian here? Like, was he... I find it too much of a coincidence that for him to say, oh, no, that's just how I lost. Like, I wasn't planning on losing, especially not that way. That's just how the fight played out. I think that's too much of a coincidence here, man. And I think there was definitely some fuckery there involved from Isaac's side of things, right? Because people can bet all the money they want, And Isaac can be injured, and he could tell people, and he could still go out there and like try and win the fight as much as he can. Which in that case, that would be somewhat okay. I mean, like, let's say you're getting ready for a fight, you're in camp, and let's say somebody in your gym that you're friends with, you tell them, hey man, shit, I have this fucking shoulder, or I have this rib injury or whatever, right? But you tell them confidently, you tell them that, hey, I'm injured, right? But I'm still going to go with the fight. But it's just like, it just happens in conversation. He's not telling you to bet or anything, right? And so then that friend says, oh shit, well, Isaac is injured, or this fighter is injured. Let me go ahead and put some money on the other guy. I don't think this is what happened. Obviously, this is not what happened. Like, in that case, Isaac would be clean from any wrongdoing, if that was the case. It's not looking that way, though. It's looking like Isaac had definitely at least some involvement on the outcome of the fight, and it looks like he just didn't even try to win. Because again, if he went out there and, at least made it past the first round, defended the choke, try to get back up, try to keep the fight going, then we can be like, all right, well, then he's all right. He's not throwing this fight. So it sucks. I'm a fan. I'm a fan. Isaac was a good prospect. He was only in the UFC for a little bit. I think this was like his fourth fight. And he had a bright future ahead, and to potentially make it into the top 15 of the division and go on and potentially achieve something. But all of that is gone, man, because really, really fast as of Sunday morning, he was cut from the UFC. And if you follow his social media, just a few months ago, he announced that he had re-signed with the UFC. So normally I would imagine they do like a 3-fight deal or something like that. So he had fights left in his contract. And it wasn't because of his record either. You know, and it's not like he was 0-3. It's not like he was 0-4. He was, I think, 2-2. I think he won his debut. He lost one after that. Then he won again, and then this one. So he is 2-2. He was 2-1. So that's not a horrible record. You know, we see prospects bounce back from records like that, especially early in your career. So while the UFC, you know, that Sunday morning didn't discuss why they cut him, we can tell it's not because of his record. It's not because he ran out of fights in his contract. So what is it then? It has to be this. And was that decision made prematurely? Maybe, because again, you want to give the guy the benefit of the doubt, right? You want to give, but again, he didn't help his case by going out there and just seeming like he didn't really care, and seeming like he just didn't want to win at all. Again, if he would have went out there and at least made it out the first round, and at least go ahead and defend the choke, get up, it would have helped his case a lot right now. But unfortunately, right now, I would say he is definitely one of the most hated guys in MMA. So yeah, so that happens. It's unfortunate. Then what to me is more shocking is that we get other fighters, we get other people coming out and saying that, like, well, that's happened to me, right? So let's take a step back and let's kind of reassess and say, okay, what exactly happened with Isaac Dolgarian? Was he approached by a shady character, mob type of guy that said, hey man, I'll give you $100K if you get submitted in the first round? Or, our mind usually goes to like bigger conspiracies, right? Like, oh, the UFC is involved and, Dana White is involved. And I don't think that's the case at all. They have too much to lose. The UFC and Dana White have too much to lose to be throwing a fight that's not even a main event, not even a pay-per-view. It's just just a card, a random card on the prelims on the Apex, right? Like it would make no sense. So our minds immediately start racing to conspiracies and who's involved, and is it the mob? Is it the mafia? Like, who is it, right? Or is it Isaac telling a bunch of his friends and a bunch of his families, like, hey, I'm going to do this, you guys go ahead and place that bet, And I'm leaning more towards the first scenario where somebody approached Isaac. And that's because of what we hear other fighters now coming out and saying, right? We have here, we had Vanessa Demopoulos, we have Vince Morales, just to name a few, that very weirdly made posts saying, hey, I've been approached too. I didn't take the offer. I think Vince Morales even said that I lost anyways, but, I wanted my integrity to be good, so I didn't take the bet. I didn't take the offer. But then weirdly enough, you have both of them, both Vanessa and Vince, saying, deleting the tweets, deleting the posts, and then coming out and saying, oh, I was just kidding. See, that is the type of shit that makes my conspiracy mind race and say, well, hold on. Did somebody, maybe the same shady character that approached Isaac, reached out to them and say, you better take that down, like what the fuck is going on? That just seems too much of a coincidence for me. Like, what the fuck why would they do that? Why would they say that and then delete the post? And to Dana White's point, he did a really good job at saying, well, now you're going to be hearing from the FBI, because now, guess what? The FBI is going to approach you and say, who asked you to throw that fight? And when was this? What fight was it? They're gonna find out real quick if they're lying. Like Vince Morales, I don't know how he lost his the fight that he said he lost when he got approached on, but the FBI is gonna look with a fucking fine-tooth comb, and they're gonna say, okay, well, you did lose the fight though, right? Well, let me see your bank account real quick. Let me see your DMs. And the most important question of them all is, who are the people contacting these fighters, right? Is it one person? Is it random people? Are they affiliated with each other? Are they not? Is it a mob type of situation? Like, what is going on that now apparently more than 3 or 4 situations have been confirmed that fighters have been, at least at the very minimum, approached to throw fights? Obviously, if a fighter was approached and they accepted, obviously they're not going to come out. They're not going to come out and make a post and then delete it. Obviously, that wouldn't happen. So you're only going to hear from those that decline the offers, right? Again, allegedly decline the offers. But again, why take the post down? Why not leave it up? Why not cooperate with the UFC, with Dana White, to say, hey, actually, I was approached. This is the person that approached me. You can then cross-reference, cross-check if they have approached anybody else, any other fighters, any other management. And then you can launch a real investigation, right? But for what we hear from Dana, that will happen. That is happening. The FBI is launching an investigation. However, the past investigation has taken 2-3 years. So, but that's how the FBI usually are. You side with the Diddy case. They take a while, but when they get you, they are going to get you, right? So, yeah, I mean, we're literally just going to have to wait at this point and see what happens, because, my, like, what I want to see some fucking heads roll, just from my own fucking vicious mind. I want to see some heads roll. I want to see controversy. I want to see some fighter fucking being arrested, some manager being arrested, or some shady character being arrested related to this. And I'm not saying this about anyone in particular. I'm not saying Isaac or anybody. I like Isaac. I actually really like Isaac. But I'm just saying, if you're a fighter that has been throwing fights at least once in your career, or you're a manager, or you're a coach, there's no room for that here, man. There's definitely no room for that, because it's going to completely ruin the sport moving forward for any new fans, for a lot of the existing fans that were maybe on the fence about the sport. And it's just added to the fire. It's really all it is. It's adding to the fire. But I just want to see some controversy, man. I want to see like a fucking top 15. And I guarantee you there's one. I guarantee you there's at least one top 15 fighter that has thrown a fight before. There's just no way, dude. There's no way that's not the case. Just because we're getting this prelim fighters coming out and saying that they were approached, there has to be one, bro. There has to be one. And I mean, the UFC is still a relatively new sport, but we know for a fact this has happened in other organizations, in other sports. We've heard stories of Pride. We've heard stories of boxing, basketball recently, you know what I mean? That guy from, I think it was Miami. Sorry, I don't really follow basketball, but the guy from Miami that was also throwing games. And when it comes to a team sport like that, too, it's actually much easier, because you don't really have to throw the whole game. You don't have to make your team lose. You can just mess with the spread a little bit, the overs and the unders. You can kind of do your own little bubble, and that'll be enough to kind of make people some money. I mean, don't even get me started about NFL, bro. This is like the second or third year that like I've actually been paying a little bit more attention to NFL, watching more games. I just watched the Broncos and the Raiders game. It was a fucking snooze fest of a game. But this is like the second or third year that I've actually been paying attention to NFL. Some guy on defense might have some money on the opposing team's receiver or tight end to get some yards or get a touchdown, because sometimes they just fucking let him walk through, bro. Anyways, I'm not gonna get too much into NFL because I'm not by any means an NFL expert or anything. Neither am I an MMA expert, but it is the sport I follow the most and I watch the most, other than Formula One as well. That's my second favorite sport, but MMA, UFC is my number one, for sure. Hence why I started this podcast. But yeah, I think we're just gonna start seeing, and what a coincidence that, like, you know, sports gambling becomes legal. Well, I don't even know when it became legal, but it was probably within the past like decade or two. And not in a lot of states, but definitely now we see more and more states. But now this is gonna push that back a little bit. At the end of the day, I think we're still gonna see people gambling nonstop, and gambling is gonna just keep growing as it's been growing and growing. And we have DraftKings being like one of the main sponsors for the UFC, and it's just gonna keep growing and growing, right? This is definitely a little setback, but that whole machine of gambling and betting is casinos is never gonna stop. It's never gonna stop. But I think what a coincidence that within this past like a span of a month or two, we get 2 to 3 major scandals as far as illegal activity in gambling and in sports betting. So I'm just curious what we're going to see more in the future. You know, like I said, I want to see some heads roll, because honestly, fuck them, dude. Because it is frustrating, especially if you've gambled money, if you bet money. Like, you're just literally fucking making donations. That's why it's frustrating to me, because I have gambled. I have bet in fights, and I've had lost money. I've won some money, but overall I've lost money. Don't come to me with any gambling advice or betting advice. But you're fucking donating money, bro, and that shit pisses me off. Like, if you're telling me there's always gonna be an edge to where I'm never gonna make money, really, like when you go to a casino and you play blackjack, you play baccarat, you play poker. Well, not poker so much, but when you play the house, there's always going to be a slight edge that the house is going to have, right? So you're literally, over time, you're playing to lose money. You're literally donating money to other fucking people. You're literally giving your wallet and saying, here you go, sir. Take my fucking money. That's what you're doing. Listen, I love gambling as much as the next guy. Don't get me wrong. I love betting. I love all of it. But it is frustrating to think that, like, fuck, that some money that I've put in hard, fucking money that I've earned, that I worked hard for, it's just literally been burned and thrown away. Like, literally just thrown away. That's why it's frustrating me. That's why I want to see some controversy. I want to see some heads roll. I want to see some fucking managers, some coaches, some fighters fucking pay the price. I want to see them pay the price. If they're guilty. Of course, right? So yeah, again, I'm not saying anything against Isaac personally. I'm just saying if anybody has committed this crime, because it is a federal crime, then I want to see the heads roll for sure. One thing we can probably guarantee, though, is that I don't think this is happening at the high level. Again, I do think we're going to see... I know maybe that there will be at least 1 or 2 top 15 fighters that have been approached, that have, maybe accepted, but they have too much to lose at that point. But this is not happening at the top level either, right? Which is also why I think Ariel Helwani and his crew, they were talking about how this compares to college basketball, because I guess... Again, I don't follow basketball that much, but there was also a scandal happening at college basketball. But this is why you don't see this happening at the top level. You don't see someone approaching LeBron James, or you don't see somebody approaching John Jones or fucking Khabib or Islam. You don't see nobody approaching the top guys, because they have too much to lose. They have too much to lose. They're in a different path. The money that they make fighting probably just outweighs any amount of money that anybody can give them to throw a fight. So it is fucked, that it's happening at this lower level, under the radar type of card. So it just makes you wonder, like, how fucking much it's been happening, and how long have they been getting away with it? How fucking long? So that's why I want to see some controversy. I want to see some heads roll, because this is literally outrageous. It's honestly, like, personally, I don't mean to get corny or anything, but it's definitely drawing me a little bit away from betting on the sport. I'm still gonna watch. I'm a huge fan, and I go through ups and downs. I don't bet every single fight card. I don't bet every single fight. I bet when I have some little extra money to bet, but I go through ups and downs. I actually haven't really placed a bet since I haven't placed a bet since I think the Hamzat fight or the Merab fight, I think. But yeah, it's oh no, the Alex fight. I haven't placed a bet since that, so it's been a little while. It's drawing me away a little from it. I have to be honest with you, because again, I'm working hard for my money, bro. I fucking bust my ass, and I'm just gonna donate it to you. I'm just gonna fucking give it to you. Like, I'd rather take my money and buy something for my daughter, or fucking go out on a date with my girl, or buy something for me, like, or pay rent. Like, if you're in a situation that desperately where you're gambling with your rent money and you're literally just donating away, like, it's fucking stupid, bro. It's literally stupid. So yeah, because of that, I want to see some head rolls. But anyways, that's enough of that. There's no really other major updates right now as far as that goes. So we're just gonna have to wait and see what happens with Dana. I know Dana, by the way, he's gonna get grilled at the next press conference, which will be probably the one for Islam and Jack Della Maddalena. He's going to get drilled with all sorts of questions, which is also smart of him to kind of come out with the statement that he did, with the video that he did, because that will alleviate the pressure a little bit. But I just know, bro, he's going to get drilled with these questions at the next time. And one thing, sorry, and then I'll get off this topic, but one thing I also wanted to talk about was that, like, how does this play a factor, or how does this affect the deal they have with Paramount? Right? They definitely, the UFC want that transition at the end of the year to go as smooth as possible. And I'm assuming they're afraid, or there's some fear that this will impact that deal, right? That, hey, the Paramount or CBS are going to be like, hey, man, like, we'll be giving you $7 billion and you can't fucking control what's happening at your house. Like, get rid of that shit. That's why I think we're gonna see a little bit of an expedited investigation with this particular case, right? Again, the one that happened a couple years ago, it's supposedly still open, but we haven't heard anything about it. So the one for this, I think we're gonna see at least more coverage on it, at least more media on it. More people are going to talk about it. I think we're going to hear Dana again talk about it for sure, because, again, I think they want to get to the bottom of it. Not before the end of the year, but at least they want to show Paramount and CBS that they're taking this seriously and that they are not going to allow this at their organization, which they shouldn't, obviously, right? But, yeah, again, just kind of makes you wonder, how long have they been getting away with this? And who are these characters that are approaching fighters? Is it the mob? Is it fucking managers, coaches? Who knows? But yeah, anyways, that's it for that topic. I know I kind of went on a little ramble right there, but anyways, another news that broke this week, specifically over in the boxing world, it's that the boxing fight between Jake Paul and Tank Davis, Gervonta Davis, has been canceled. And it was a big fight, kinda. It was on Netflix, so the numbers were gonna be decent, right? Because if we look back at the Mike Tyson fight, I mean, that one was a little bit like of a spectacle just because it was Mike Tyson. But it was gonna do decent numbers either way, I do believe, right? Especially being on Netflix, you don't have to pay for it extra. So it was going to do decent. It wasn't going to beat Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul numbers, but I think it was going to do great. The fight got canceled, I think, allegedly for some allegations that Tank was, some domestic violence abuse, which is not the first time we have seen Tank do some stupid shit like that. And honestly, it's just so dumb of him that, like, I'm pissed, because from the beginning, this fight was a fucking nightmare, bro. A shit show. It made no fucking sense. It's just, I'm over this whole Jake Paul bullshit. I was actually rooting for the guy, and I'm still kind of rooting for him, but I was actually like coming around, like saying, oh, well, he actually is trying to become a boxing world champ. And to his claim, he still is. Buddy, you're not going to do that with fighting these fucking gimmick fights, this fucking satire fights. He's just doing it for views, for clicks, for money, right? Like, as of right now, I can tell you that the fight against Tank Davis and the fight against any of the opponents that he has called do not put him any closer to a world championship title. Because he keeps calling this gimmick, he keeps calling Nate Diaz out. Now that the Tank fight fell through, obviously he's called out Nate Diaz, he's called out Francis Ngannou. The only reasonable one that I've heard that I'm like, okay, that one I could see that. It's at heavyweight. Or maybe they could be at catchweight, but it could be, it's Anthony Joshua. I mean, he's the only one that's a real contender out of the bunch, out of the few names that have been thrown out there. I think you had Teofimo Lopez maybe call him out too, but again, nothing's confirmed right now. As of right now, and I Googled this before I started recording this, as of right now, he still has no opponent. But again, any of those names I mentioned, especially the Nate Diaz's of the world, the Francis Ngannou's of the world, they're not gonna get you any closer to a boxing world title, like literally. And if Jake Paul was serious about that, like he could have done this 6 months ago, a year ago. Again, instead of booking that stupid Mike Tyson fight, instead of booking that stupid Tank Davis fight a real contender. Yeah, you're not gonna get as many views, of course, because we already saw you fight guys that were no names, that were kind of contenders, but some guys that was fucking 0-5 or some shit. Some guy that comes out of his 9 to 5 to fight you. So we already saw that, and nobody watched those fights. They had no traction, no pay-per-view, no nothing. So he is not willing to compromise and say, I need to go a year, 6 months to a year of just not giving a shit about pay-per-views, about likes, about views, about the payday. I'm going to make less money, less people are going to watch, but I'm going to fight real contenders in a top 15 in the rankings, right? Whether it's fucking WBO, whether it's IBF, wherever. Obviously, boxing is different than MMA and the UFC, where they have multiple organizations with multiple belts, multiple rankings. So pick one. Just pick one. And pick somebody in the top 15 and fight them. It's really not that hard. I'm assuming any of them will gladly take a fight with you. Whether it's because they think they can beat you or whatever. Just any of them will take a fight with you. But he's not willing to do that. He's not willing to swallow his ego and his pride and say, he desperately needs the pay-per-views and the payday and the spectacle and the Netflix deal. And yeah, so that's why I'm saying, like, right now, I don't think he's serious about, at least right now, he's not serious about his, going for a boxing belt, because he could have done it. He has everything he needs. He has the skill. He has the cardio. He has the experience, believe it or not, even though he's fought nothing but retired guys, 60-year-olds, MMA guys. He has some experience. That will speak for something, right? That's the only thing he has going for him right now. Again, and the skill is there too. And he's still young. He's got a fuck ton of money. He can dedicate a lot of resources and money to his training camps versus like somebody. I mean, I couldn't name you a top 15 guy in boxing. Really, I couldn't. So I'm assuming those guys don't have nearly as much money as Jake Paul to use as resources. Their gym doesn't look like Jake Paul's gym. Their recovery doesn't look like Jake Paul's recovery. The therapy doesn't look like Jake Paul's therapy. The sparring partners, because Jake Paul could probably get some good sparring partners and maybe pay them some money. So, the supplements they're not the same. Jake Paul has a clear advantage right now, at least on paper, on any guy in the top 15 in boxing, right? Again, of any organization. So why not book a fight? Why not book a fight? Like, he desperately wants to fight the Mike Tysons, the Tank Davises, and then magically get the champion of one of these organizations, right? To his point, he has called out, like, Usyk. He called him out. That would be a great fight. And fuck, dude, Usyk would beat the fuck out of Jake Paul. Usyk would beat the living shit out of Jake Paul, right? And there's no denying that. And if you have a slight chance that could happen, that he could beat Usyk, you're delusional. And if he beats Usyk, I'll know boxing is rigged for sure. Don't sue me, Jake Paul. The biggest loser, I think, of all of this is fucking Tank, bro. He lost on a huge payday, on a huge platform, the opportunity to potentially beat, because I think he had a chance. Because, you always have the speed factor. And he cracks really hard. I don't know if he had a weight limit, but he probably could have walked in there. I think he fights at 135. He probably could have walked in there 150, without cutting any weight. 150 minimum. And some of the power could translate to, and he had a chance, obviously. He's a phenomenal boxer, But, dude, you're going to let some bullshit on your personal life, some domestic abuse bullshit, get in the way of your biggest payday of your life, I think, right? I don't know. He probably made some good money fighting Ryan Garcia and some of his other fights, but Raleigh, but 30, the numbers that were thrown around were 30 million for Tank. So, I don't know. It's definitely one of, if not the biggest payday of his life. Definitely on the biggest platform of his life. Definitely definitely the most eyeballs he was ever going to get. Either way, it's a major loss. Whether it's the biggest payday or not, it's a major loss because everything that comes with it, the eyeballs, the the sponsors, the deals, the brand deals, everything that comes with that. The momentum on your fucking quest to be more famous, right? And which is fucking disgusting. But all of that, it would have been just a net positive for Tank, even if he would have lost to Jake Paul. Even if it's a close fight, it's a decision, and Jake Paul takes it, it's best case scenario. And he just fucking dropped the ball, man. Just dropped the ball, dude. And he'd be alright. He's already rich and shit, but he could have literally double up his fucking net worth with this fight alone, I think. So he's the biggest loser. I'll tell you what though, I'm not really liking any of the new opponents that are being thrown around for Jake Paul. Nate Diaz was the one that called him out, but Jake Paul did turn that down. He said the timing wasn't right. Fucking for what, dude? First you praise this guy, saying, "Oh, shout out Nate Diaz for taking, for being willing to accept the fight in 2 weeks' notice." But then you say the timing's not right. The fuck? For what? The timing's not right with Netflix. I'll tell you that much because we saw this. I think we saw this in the Mike Tyson fight too. Because if I remember correctly, the Mike Tyson fight got rescheduled. Jake Paul was looking for a new opponent. And Netflix said no. Say, we'll just push the date. And I think what I'm seeing from Netflix right now is that they are very picky about who they're going to put on their platform, right? They're not going to put Nate Diaz on their platform. I'll give you that much. They're not going to put Nate Diaz fucking coming out, fucking... They're not going to do that, right? Tank was at least a legit boxer, somewhat respectable, somewhat clean, man, a little bit. And Mike Tyson is Mike Tyson. So, he would have brought all the eyeballs in the world, all the fucking boomers of the world would have watched that fight. So, that's why when the Mike Tyson fight got rescheduled and Jake Paul won it, if I remember correctly, I could be fucking making this up. Holy shit! But if I remember correctly, that fight got postponed. They were looking for a new opponent, and Netflix said no. So this could be a similar situation where Jake Paul is saying the timing's not right. Well, it's not right, not for him. It's not right for Netflix, because again, Netflix are not going to put Nate Diaz on a paper, or not a paper, but on their platform, on the main stage. They're not going to put Francis Ngannou either. I think, whether you like him or not, they're not going to put, because again, maybe they have also seen the experience that Dana White has had with Francis, and they might look the other way. They will put somebody like Anthony Joshua, I think. I think that's why I'm saying, like, that is the one that kind of makes the more sense to me right now. But it's too close of a date, right? I think we're like 2 weeks out. And Anthony Joshua is not going to take a 2 week, fight notice of a fight with Jake Paul. So that's not going to happen. I can't speak today. A 2 week notice to fight Jake Paul. So that's another thing that it's still unclear. Sorry, I don't have answers for you guys. Sorry, I don't have breaking news, but we just don't know right now what is going to happen with Jake Paul and his opponent. But again, if he's serious about being a boxing world champion, don't fight any of those guys you called out. Don't. Go to the cruiserweight division, which is, I think, the division that he said he wants to be a champion in. Go to the cruiserweight division and look at the fucking top 15, even top 10. I'll give you top 10, bro. I'll give you top 10. Just because, honestly, nobody knows those guys. I'll give you top 10. Pick somebody. Pick somebody and fight them right now. I'll guarantee you 90% of those guys will take a 2 weeks notice fight with you. But you won't do it. You won't do it because you care too much about the pay-per-view, and you care too much about the views and the money and the platform. And I also think Netflix is not going to want to do it, because they're not going to put just a random guy, a nobody, on their platform. For what we've seen, it's a huge platform and can produce some of the biggest fights in history as far as viewership goes. So yeah, I mean, it is what it is, but we're just going to have to wait and see what happens with the fight. They might have to push it, honestly, which is fine with me. But yeah, either way, I don't care about that shit. I don't care about it. I'm over here fucking talking about it. I do care, but I'm not going to take him seriously if he keeps doing these gimmicky fights. So there's that. And yeah, one more thing I wanted to talk about today was this another interview, another news that has been doing the rounds on the MMA media, which has been Ronda Rousey. She came out with a book, and went on a few interviews, and specifically the one that sparked all the controversy was the one with Bert Kreischer. She said a couple of things that really triggered a lot of people. First of all, she said that Joe Rogan was not an MMA expert, and really, really weirdly just threw random jabs at Joe Rogan for what it seems like no reason. And I can guarantee you right now that Joe Rogan has never, I've consumed hundreds, if not thousands of hours of Joe Rogan podcast, right? I am an avid listener when I can. And I watch a lot of his MMA breakdowns too, like not the breakdowns, but like the MMA shows he has with fighters. He does one really good, which is called Protect Your Neck with Matt Serra and a few other guys, Dean Thomas, and I forget the other guy's name. But they all they talk is MMA, and I love those podcasts. And I also listen to a lot of his other podcasts. Who doesn't? He has some fantastic guests on. And on top of the podcast that he does, I've also consumed a lot of his, coverage in the UFC. A lot of his, every time there's a pay-per-view, he's giving his opinion. He's breaking down fights. He's talking about the history of the sport. And I can guarantee you right now that I can try and go back and I would find 0 instances of Joe Rogan saying something bad about Ronda Rousey, something legitimately negative. Obviously, there was some criticism when she lost, right? Because, at the end of her career, she wasn't as nearly as good. And that's why I think she's salty, because of the way her career ended. That's about the only, if you want to say like negative or criticism that you're going to find from Joe Rogan talking in a Ronda Rousey aspect. But other than that, Joe Rogan has never said, like, oh, Ronda Rousey sucks, or oh, she's terrible fighter, terrible human. He has never attacked personally Ronda. So why would Ronda just, again, randomly, and seems like out of the blue, attack Joe Rogan, which is a beloved, whether you like him or not? Again, he is a huge, beloved by many figure, not only in the MMA world, but in the fucking world in general. I mean, the guy talks to presidents, talks to Elon Musk, talks to scientists. He is one person that hits many, many pockets of, all the niche pockets, because us, in our own MMA world, we obviously have our own media and our own personalities and the fighters and the journalists, but he is just surpassed that completely. I mean, I don't have to fucking tell you, the guy has the biggest fucking podcast in the world. And on top of that, he also has his whole comedy scene, which is even fucking more separated from everything he does. And we're talking about fucking huge pockets that he is, I don't have to break it down, obviously, but I guarantee you he's never said anything bad about Ronda Rousey. Therefore, why does Ronda have to attack him that way? It just seemed really, really weird for no reason. And then Bert Kreischer also, I think, didn't really do a good enough job of like saying, well, why do you feel that way? He just kind of laughed it off and said, oh, I'll move on. Why do you feel that way? What makes you feel that way? Has he ever attacked you? Like, why are you going bad on him right now? And if he's not an expert, then who is? I'll tell you who's not an expert in MMA. You might be shocked to hear this. Even with her extensive career, even with being a champion, even with being probably an Olympian. I think she was an Olympian, but even with all of that, I'm willing to say right now that Ronda Rousey is not an MMA expert either, right? Because again, first of all, she hasn't fought in how many years? Second of all, being a fighter doesn't make you an expert. A lot of the times, what do we see from these guys? More often than not, we see these fighters completely putting their trust and completely putting their game plan, their decision making on their coaches, right? If anybody gets close to being an expert, I think it's going to be a lot of coaches, right? Like a lot of like the Trevor Whitmans. Like he can probably watch a fighter, just watch two guys move around the octagon for 2 minutes, and he can pick apart movements and certain styles. And I guarantee you Ronda can't do that. She might know stuff, but not at the same level. If she was a so-called expert, she didn't claim to be for sure. But again, who is? Right? Who is? Also, you have to remember, MMA and UFC in general is still a relatively new sport. NFL, football, and baseball and basketball have been on for more than 100 years, right? So you do get these people, you get this knowledge, you get this history that gets passed down from generation to generation to generation. And the UFC is still in the early aspects of that. I don't think we've still haven't reached the pinnacle of the sport. And we haven't yet reached a fighter or a coach that are true in the expression of the word a mixed martial artist expert, because everybody makes mistakes. Every coach makes mistakes. Every fighter makes mistakes. So, I mean, again, if you want to get fucking technical with it, again, I'm getting technical with it, right? To say you're an expert or something means you know absolutely everything. Okay, Ronda, who does? Nobody does. Another person that might come to mind is somebody that could potentially be a former fighter, now coaching, or potentially being an analyst. Someone like a Daniel Cormier, someone like a Dominic Cruz. I really, really like TJ Dillashaw's breakdown of fights. He is a former fighter, and we saw him now get into coaching, you know. Someone like Luke Thomas, like a Ariel Helwani, you know. Ariel Helwani is more of like on the journalist side. He, you know, I think he lacks some of that play-by-play kind of like breakdown of, again, kind of like the shit that Trevor Whitman has. Like, to be able to just look at a fight and say like, oh, this guy needs to do this or needs to do that. And that's exactly what makes a good coach, right? So that's what I'm saying. Like, the trifecta of somebody that could be a true MMA expert would be a fighter, a former fighter that was probably a champion or at least accomplished good things in the sport, who's also maybe a coach and potentially have done some analyst work, right? They break down fights, they make predictions, and they're right, shit like that, you know? And again, nothing's ever going to be for sure, because whoever you want to pick that has all those accolades, they're still going to get shit wrong. They're not going to be able to just tell you, oh, I'm going to predict that this guy's going to win this way and that's going to happen. That's not the case. But I just going back to Ronda, I just found it so weird that she's so salty, bro. And she not only went bad at Joe Rogan, but she also went bad at quote unquote MMA media, which I love the way Ariel Helwani broke it down. He said, well, Ronda, and again, shout out to Ariel. He's a fantastic journalist. He said, well, Ronda, what you're describing is not MMA media. You're describing the UFC, right? The UFC, because again, to quote Ronda, she said, MMA media is a type of media that would praise you when you're a champion, but as soon as you lose, they're going to say you ain't shit. And I'm paraphrasing, but she essentially said that. And Ariel had a really, really great point. I don't consume all of MMA media, you know. I watch some shit here and there. I watch Joe Rogan. I watch Ariel Helwani, a few other people, Bisping, Chael Sonnen, you know, former fighters, analysts, but Daniel Cormier. But they don't say former champions ain't shit. I don't think I've ever heard anybody in MMA media said, oh, someone like a Conor ain't shit, or someone like a Anderson Silva ain't shit, someone like a GSP ain't shit. We have never heard that from any of those guys. And Ariel was right on the money. He said, you're not describing MMA media, you're describing the UFC, honey. The actual organization. That's what you're describing. They are the ones that forget or choose to look the other way when it comes to acknowledging legends like Anderson Silva, like Francis Ngannou, for other reasons. But and who knows, maybe we're gonna see later on they do the same thing to some of the champions now, you know. But yeah, Ariel hit it right on the money. The UFC are the ones that do that. The media, they really don't. I mean, again, I haven't consumed every single minute or for every single hour of MMA media, so I couldn't tell if someone did say something negative about a former champ or former fighter. But at least not like blatantly they would say Ronda Rousey sucks. She sucks. She's a horrible fighter. I mean, that I don't think has happened. So why is she so salty? And, you know, I think I figured it out. She's just salty because of the way her career ended. I think she just, she just saw that she distanced herself too much from the sport. That's what happens, I think. She loses, she's embarrassed, and she goes and does other things, which, to her point, she is massively successful, movies, Fast and Furious, WWE, businesses that she has, she's massively successful. So she distanced herself completely from the sport, from the media. This is the first time really that she's done any interviews, and she's not doing MMA interviews. She's not MMA media interviews. She's not doing Ariel Helwani. She might go on Joe Rogan. I don't know. Well, actually, she might not. No, now that she said that. She went on The Breakfast Club, again, because she's not really talking about fighting either. She's just talking about her book, which fucking sucks anyways, probably. She has thrown hints out there that she might want to go back to fighting, but that's not going to happen. She's just saying that just to get views and just to get clicks. If she were to come back, who the fuck is she going to fight? Fucking Valentina Shevchenko? Or fucking Amanda Nunes? No, dude. Kayla Harrison? Any of those girls would completely molly whoop her. Fucking mop the floor with her, dude. So yeah, no, she's not coming back. She's just saying it just to say it, again, just to get views and get clicks. And she's mad because she distanced herself so much from the sport, and she got left behind because of other characters and other fighters that came after her and achieved more greatness, not only in women's but also in men's. You got to realize that, when after the Ronda Rousey era, it's kind of when we had the whole Conor era. So we went from one legend to another, and all of a sudden, Conor is the new guy, the star, right? And then you get the Khabibs, the Poiriers, the Adesanyas, the John Jones, the Ngannous, the Sugar Sean O'Malley. And then on the women's side, you get Shevchenko, you get Zhang Weili, you get Amanda Nunes, Kayla Harrison. You get all of these legends that come after you, and you get forgotten. And that's why I think she's salty. And that's why I think she decided randomly, out of nowhere, to attack not only the MMA media, but the sport. She attacked the sport in general. And she attacks one of the biggest names in the sport, right? The biggest, probably, other than Dana White. And it just doesn't look good. I think if anything, this hurt her more. This definitely hurt her more than helped her, right? But again, it's what gets views. If she would have gotten the podcast and say, "Oh, I love Joe Rogan, he's great," or "I love Ariel Helwani, he's great," that gets no views. That's going to get a regular amount of views that a Bert Kreischer podcast would get, right? Or a Breakfast Club podcast would get. But now that she attacks not only the biggest fucking podcaster in the world, but attacks all of MMA media, that's going to get traction and that's going to get views. So in a way, that's how, I'm literally figuring this out right now live. Holy shit, my mind was blown, dude. If you follow comedy, you've seen that Joe Rogan had a similar situation happen a few months ago where another comic went bad at him. But every time somebody has thrown shade at Joe Rogan, they've done it promoting something. Just because they know saying his name and saying something controversial, it's going to get views and it's going to get traction. Again, Ronda Rousey came out with a book and she's promoting that. So what best way to promote your product? Talk about the biggest podcaster in the world, right? And the comedian that I'm referring to, what's his name? I don't know his name, dude. But again, he came out with a stand-up special and he went bad on Joe Rogan and again, just promoting. So, wow. We're probably, if I see it again, I'm up to something because I just figured this shit out, dude. And you might be like, duh, but I don't know. Leave me alone. To me, it just clicked right now. That's the reason why she went bad on Joe Rogan, just to get the clicks and the views and promote her stupid ass book that probably sucks. But yeah, I think that is where we're going to leave it, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate all of you. Again, go ahead, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and leave me a comment. Let me know if you agree with anything I just said, or if you think I'm stupid as fuck. Let me know down below, please, too. But yeah, thank you guys, and have a great rest of your day. Peace.